Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about map size today and how this leak provided yet another argument why huge maps are in fact a problem. When I say maps, I mean the zones that you portal into when using a waystone. So Fortress is a map in this video. Let's dive in. I am not the first, of course, bringing up the topic of the map size, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out if you have to sprint for 2 minutes to reach a map boss across a snowy ridge that the map is huge. I've seen open worlds and ARPGs smaller than some of these Path of Exile 2 maps. Previously, other content creators during interviews, for example, way before 0.4, asked GGG why the maps were so large, because it felt sluggish to clear them. I don't think the devs ever provided a solid reason as to why a big map size is good, but they typically countered the question by saying that the map size isn't the issue, but the players are. The map content is. They just needed to add more interesting things to maps and it would be fine. While I didn't agree with that argument, I could see the merit of it to some extent. To some extent the argument was valid, as several league mechanics weren't implemented yet, and the devs knew of course what kind of content they were working on. Sluggishness wasn't the only issue with the map size though. There were more arguments against big maps, for example the pace of Atlas progression, which requires map completion in order to progress. But I think it's fair to say that the primary issue that players had, and probably still have, is that being in a huge map wasn't fun for all sorts of reasons. It's much easier to miss something in an enormous map, and if you then have to run all the way back, that is just not fun. What GGG has done the last few leagues is introduce primarily 2 new league mechanics, the Wisps and the Abyss, and on top of that made improvements to a bunch of random events that you encounter in the maps, such as rogue exiles and strongboxes. Map size was addressed in some cases, but for the most part map size was and is still huge. But you could argue at least there is plenty of content in the maps these days. I think up until 0.4 you could make an argument that Jonathan was correct that adding content to the maps would mostly solve the issue, as you would be able to spend your time in maps interacting with all sorts of league mechanics and in that sense not be bored. The backtracking was never really solved though, but okay. And that something like that would be fun. But even if Jonathan was correct and proved by adding content that map size was in fact okay, with the introduction of 0.4 there is an entirely new issue where map size plays a big factor. We are a week in patch 0.4, Fate of the Vaal. It differs from previous league mechanics. And I don't mean that previous league mechanics were fun and rewarding. I mean in how we interact with the league mechanic. In previous patches, the vast majority of the league mechanic took place inside of the map. Wisps appear in maps, you chase them, you kill the rare and you're done. Abyss appears in the maps, and while you do take a detour here and there, primarily the league mechanic plays out in maps, and that is where the action is. Kulamak is outside of maps, I get that. Abyssal depths are sort of in between, but at least when you see one, you jump in and you complete it. Kulamak is just a waystone away. Even the parts of the league mechanic that weren't taking place inside of the maps, you could instantly do without any friction, if you so please. Let's compare this to the current league mechanic. Fate of the Vaal does not primarily take place in maps, it primarily takes place outside of maps in the Vaal Temple or Aziri's Temple. This is the first time in Path of Exile 2. It's not the first time for Grinding Gear games, however. In Path of Exile 1, several league mechanics primarily take place outside of maps, such as Heist or Delve or even the original Incursion, so for a Path of Exile game it's nothing new. But in Path of Exile 2, this is the first time we're seeing this to this extent. You might think, therefore, this league mechanic outside of maps thing is a tried and tested concept, given how many years this has been in Path of Exile 1. And it is, because this works perfectly fine in Path of Exile 1. And the reason why it works perfectly fine in PoE 1 is because you can run maps quite fast. You have plenty of maps, and getting your resources for the league mechanics you want to engage with, whether it is contracts and blueprints for Heist, or Sulfite for Delve, or the equivalent of Vaal beacons for the Alpha Temple, also known as Incursion, you will never spend more than a few minutes in total gathering those resources in the maps. If all you want to do is that out-of-map league mechanic, like the Vaal Temple, You quickly run a few maps, gather the resources, so the Vaal beacons, let's say, and this only will take you a few minutes at most. If you want to get 32,000 sulfite, you use a few scarabs, rush like 3 maps, and the whole meter is filled up and you can spend another hour or so in delve, depending on the depth that you're delving at. That is a good ratio, spending a few minutes gathering for roughly an hour or so playing what you want to play. Even if it's 30 minutes, that is still kind of fine, right? I feel this is great because that means there is a loose connection to maps, resources are found in maps, sulfite is only found in maps, but you still have a lot of player agency to make a choice whether you just want to run the map normally, meaning clearing the whole thing, and passively gain all those resources and then do the league mechanic at some point once you've gathered enough. Or if you just want to rush maps, only focusing on gathering the resources so you can focus on the league mechanic and not interact with maps other than getting those resources. I think that is great design, providing players with a lot of agency. But now look at Path of Exile 2 and this whole thing falls apart. Not on paper maybe. In theory, and I'm doing it right here in this footage, you can rush maps to get the resources, the Vaal beacons. In this league you need 6 Vaal beacons to run the temple. So my strategy here is I need to find that beacon in the map, kill the monsters, and I need to kill the map boss, and I ignore everything else. I literally run past it. I must kill the map boss or the map fails, and then I can't run it again as the Vaal beacon or any other league mechanic for that matter won't be there anymore. I don't know why that is implemented in this way, probably to avoid some sort of exploit, thereby punishing 90% of the player base, but hey, that is the case. So killing the map boss is mandatory, which increases the time spent in the maps significantly. Clearly, if I could just do the beacon and portal out of a map, that would be a lot better, but you can't do that. At least not consistently, you will run out of maps at some point on the atlas. A much bigger issue is the sheer size of the maps. Of course, this depends on your build, I understand, but we're not all running around with headhunters. You can make a comment about the speed of my build. I understand that it is not the fastest, but I am going pretty much as fast as I can. Sprinting and dodge rolling, ignoring everything but the boss and the beacons, and to complete 6 maps and 6 Vaal beacon events, that takes me 15 minutes. And there is basically no downtime in between. I rush the boss, find the beacon, portal out, dump whatever I have in my stash, which isn't much of course, put in a new map, I don't even look at the modifiers, and I go again. 15 minutes and I'm rushing here. You're watching the whole clip in this video. If I just map normally, so full clear the map, do the mechanics, the whole thing, maps take at least 5 to 6 minutes, they can take up to 10 minutes if it's an overrun abyss map, meaning I would take at least an hour to do all of the beacons, assuming that I don't fail a map. If you fail the map, you need to do another map and that time increases. On the one hand, you could say that I'm just enjoying the game for an hour and then after that I get to do the temple, which would be true assuming that I actually enjoy mapping. Which I don't, because the map takes ages to complete and it is so sluggish and boring. But let's say I do. Still, I want to focus on running the league mechanic because that is basically the only new content we have. And I want to build my temple. This is the only new stuff we get to do this league. So given that that is the case, I have no other option than mindlessly rushing bosses and beacons for 15 minutes so I can spend at best 30 minutes in the temple, which is a horrible ratio. 15 minutes of not having fun and pure grinding to have 30 minutes of potential fun. What's not really relevant here is if you like the temple or not. That is not my point. You may love it, you may not, but it is the new league mechanic. Some people will love it, and assuming you're one of them, you want to focus doing this, so that means that you're stuck at those 15 minutes or however fast you can farm those 6 maps and beacons before you can continue with the league mechanic and building the temple and running the temple. Next to this, even if the Vaal temple isn't the primary league mechanic, the primary content of the patch, so let's say we're at patch 0.5, where it is most likely part of the core game, I would think you would want to provide players agency to make the choice to primarily play the Vaal temple or primarily play something else. You have that agency with league mechanics that play out inside of the maps, such as Abyss or Expedition. That choice and diversity in endgame content is what makes Path of Exile 1 such an amazing game after all. Sure, Vaal Temple will likely get an Atlas tree and tablets, but that is not addressing the primary issue. As it stands now, you would still have to run 6 maps. Lastly, any new League mechanic that requires you to find resources in maps and then spend those resources outside of the maps will run into the exact same issue. We will get Delve at some point, right? So that likely means collecting sulfite in the maps and then running Delve outside of the maps. Imagine having to spend 15 minutes collecting sulfite so you can spend 30 minutes delving. If this issue isn't addressed, that is going to be the reality. It's not a pretty picture. I've so far highlighted the issue, or what I believe the issue is. Of course, this is all just my opinion. In terms of solutions, I think there are 2 directions you can go. The first direction is what GGG has been focusing on so far, which is dealing with the symptoms rather than curing the disease. Symptoms like, I need to backtrack so much in maps, and the solution is then checkpoints. Symptoms like, I can't find the rares required to complete the maps. The solution, map icons, which Jonathan now regrets, but he would have never had to add these things if the disease was taken care of instead of the symptoms. Also, making killing rares mandatory for map completion is pretty wild, but okay, they got rid of that. Symptoms like Atlas progression feels so sluggish because it takes so long to complete maps. Solution, they actually never solved this, it is still a massive issue. Not even the symptoms are solved in this case. In line with this trend, GGG could put more band-aids on the League mechanics and the maps. For example, they could reduce the required resources to enter a temple so it doesn't take 6 Vaal beacons but only 1 or 2. This would effectively bring it in line with Expedition or with Abyss, Gulamak, that sort of thing. Or they could buff the beacon resources so that in red maps you get 3 points per beacon, yellow maps 2 points and white maps 1. It's a decent solution as it wouldn't mess up the campaign balance, for example. It is still a band-aid, but it would work, and it is a somewhat elegant solution at least. The second direction is the obvious one, of course, to vastly reduce the map size and make the maps easier to navigate. I still don't know where this new map design comes from, why it has to be so difficult to find stuff in maps, and why it has to take me a few minutes running down a snowy mountain to reach the boss. But it should be clear at this point that not only is doing these maps quite problematic because it is so slow and sluggish, it also starts to negatively impact other game systems, such as League mechanics. And maps are, so far at least, before the 0.5 endgame rework, the cornerstone and the foundation of endgame progression. Whether it's stuff like Abyss that you do inside of the maps or the Vaal Temple that happens outside, it all begins with maps. Even collecting fragments to fight pinnacle bosses like Arbiter, you find those in maps. Maps are the starting point for basically everything, just like it is in Path of Exile 1. And if maps are just too large to be functional and enjoyable, up to the point where I have to rush maps for 15 minutes just to interact with the League mechanic, it should be clear that maybe the issue isn't what we are doing inside of the maps, maybe the issue is what a good number of players have been saying since 0.1. Maybe the issue is the most simple, straightforward issue, which is that these maps are just way too big. It is very possible 0.5 could fix this. I would be very happy if it does. It is, however, also possible, and I feel unfortunately way more likely with the way GGG has been dealing with the map issues, that 0.5 is an overhaul to the Atlas and how we interact with that, but that map size isn't addressed at all. There's some hope. GGG in the past has reduced map size by a bit on some maps. It's been in some patch notes, it has happened, but clearly not enough. I think this League mechanic makes it painfully obvious that map size isn't only problematic for Atlas progression and for the sluggish endgame in-map feeling, it turns out it is also problematic for out-of-map League mechanics. I really hope GGG reconsiders their stance on map size, because it should be clear by now, it's not just what happens inside of the map that's problematic, it is also the impact that the huge map size has on League mechanics playing outside of maps. A small update regarding the last video, that one got so many comments, it's crazy. I can't keep up with all of it, normally I can, but I just can't this time. But thanks for all the feedback, positive and negative, it's all very interesting to read. I was surprised by how many people felt the same way and by the very favorable like ratio. Videos like this can get absolutely hammered with dislikes, but many viewers seem to agree, which I feel is quite interesting. Anyway, I hope you appreciate this one as well, so give it a like if you do. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Subscribe for more, mostly Path to Exile content. I'll probably do one overall review of the league and then call it a day for 0.4. After 70 hours or so, I'm kinda done. Love you all, see you soon, bye bye.